You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. And the man who just took leave of us, Dr. Yao Osei Edichum, MP Busumchi, and Deputy Minister for Education. Still here in the studio, Dr. Edith Dankwa, CEO, Business and Financial Times, Clara Berry Kasati, a legal practitioner and teaches the law at GIMPA. Joining us now is Dr. Idisa Sulemana. He's a lecturer, Department of Economics, University of Ghana. Good morning and welcome to Newsfile. Good morning. Great to have you. Good to be here. Right. And Steve Opata is Director of Finance Markets, Bank of Ghana. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Right. So, you have already put, out a chart that I'm looking at. What is happening to the city? Explain to me who doesn't have, the what do you call it? The capacity to appreciate all the nuanced ways you guys go about it. What exactly is happening to the city? It's out of control, completely out of control, isn't it?
No, I wouldn't describe it as out of control. What I would say is that we've seen a CD that until May was performing very well with year-to-date appreciation or depreciation about 16 basis points. After May, there's been some pressures on the CD that has amounted to year-to-date depreciation of about 7%. Actually, there's been some pressures in the past 2 to 3 months. So that's what I would say. But even if you look at it in a context, going as far back, I would say that we are not in like a really bad shape. Because we've seen the worst. We think that last year was much better than this year. So if you compare it to last year, then you say that the city is not performing well. But the year has not ended. We are taking appropriate actions to make sure that we end the year very well.
Interesting. Now, let's hear what Dr. Dankwa also has to say about this, because we know that you have been at the forefront of the Ghana Economic Summit, a summit that brings together the best brains to look at the economy oftentimes and what should be done. You must be very worried about what is happening to the city, are you not?
This has been there over the years, unfortunately. We talk about it when there are crises or there is some changes. Bank of Ghana comes in and puts in some dollars and it stabilizes the economy a bit, and then we go back to it. I think that even looking at our indicators now, macroeconomic indicators, I think the managers of the economy are doing well, but then the shocks or the depreciation of the cedi is still happening. So we must ask ourselves tough questions at this point. Why do we keep going? We stabilize it a bit and then we dip. And then we come back and we make promises and we still get there. It is clear that the hard truth is that we are too much dependent on imports. It is the truth. And as a country, if we really want to turn things around, then we have to have a look or a conversation around industrialization. Until we do that, we'll always be faced with these challenges. I am not surprised we are here, and it's becoming very difficult for us to look that direction. Businesses or businessmen look for where opportunities are. If I will go to China and I will import, or I go to another country and I import, and my products that I bring in is competitive and it's hassle-free, and I'll still make profits, why would I, venture into manufacturing, which comes with its own challenges? And we all know. It is good there have been some interventions, and I'm sure that is why the government has come up with this one district, one factory. And that's also another thing. How do we take advantage of it to ensure that in the next few years, and I think there must be a plan going forward, which I suppose, or I think, or I believe we have, to ensure that we get out of this problem. Because if we fail to do that, we'll be going back and forth. We will stabilize it, we will go back, and that's it. Although the indicators are right, you know, to a large extent, we also know what is happening externally. And if you are not too strong within as a country, external shocks will always throw you out of balance. We all know that the US reserves is now strong, and fund managers are moving funds from emerging markets there. Okay. Because at the end of the day, they want high yields. So if that will bring them the yields, why not? So it would affect us as an emerging economy, one way or the other, if monies or capital is taken out of the system. So it's a combination of a lot of factors. Okay. And
right. Now, Sliba, before I come to you, let's hear what Dr. Bawumia has had to say, and let's have you tell us whether or not he's right or wrong. First of all, question is, earlier on, before he became vice president, this is what he had to say, and let's listen to that and ask the question, what has happened? Because that's the question everybody is asking. Yeah. This is what he said about a year and 2 years ago. Let's listen to Dr. Bawumia.
You have seen a stability return to the exchange rate. In fact, for the year, the cedi has appreciated in value. When we came in, it was running. Essentially, we have arrested it. and the IGP has the key. She's locked it up. We've arrested it.
Okay, so this may sound funny, but serious. What happened? We've gotten to, you guys call it, is it single-digit inflation?
Yes,
We've gotten there before. So what has been happening? What's the problem?
Well, thank you. When you said you were going to play the video, I thought you were going to go back to the one before he became the vice president. But if you want me to take it from here, that's okay.
Go ahead and do the analysis the way it fits for you.
You know, as Doc said, we have structural issues, okay? And Bawumia himself said that if the fundamentals are weak, the cedi will expose you, right? I have always held the view that, look, this is not something you can tame. You see, the exchange rate is a price. It's the price of the dollar in terms of the cedi. How many cedis do I need to buy a dollar, right? And like any price at all, we get a lot of information. There's no reason why we should try to tame it. You can't. Because, see, what is happening here is that we're exporting
what's the job of the economic team that Dr. Bawumia leads? If you say there's no reason to try to tame it, they're supposed to be working. What is the Bank of Ghana doing? The Ministry of Finance. To manage it.
So you ask the Bank of Ghana, how much have they been putting into the system? They call that foreign exchange market intervention, right? Okay, tell us how much you're putting into the market every month, and what are the returns? Because really, when you do economic analysis, it comes down to what? Cost-benefit analysis. Well, we're putting in $400 million every month. By how much has the cedi gained value? And really, for whom? Because the thing is that prices reflect the value people place on the goods and services they buy. So for me, if it becomes too expensive, I shy away from it. If you're in traffic and somebody walks to you with a mobile phone and says, hey, look, I want to sell this mobile phone for $5,000, would you buy it? It's because we think it's very expensive. It's not worth that price. Therefore, the exchange rate is giving us some information that, look, you are importing too much and exporting very little. In fact, the idea that the exchange rate is bad is even wrong. Think about China, what has been happening there. China has kept their currency artificially low, and the reason is that they are an export, net export country, right? So by keeping your exchange rate, your currency low, you get a lot of people buying from you. And that is why United States always had a problem with China running that crawling peg and so on and so forth. So I feel that this is happening because we're not exporting. We're not exporting enough. We've been running perennial trade deficits, and we import literally everything, including toothpick. That's where the problem is. So you can put in all the money you want. Bank of Ghana, you don't have infinite amount of foreign reserve. You don't, do you? I think after some time, you have to stop. You have to, you can't keep on. who are we helping with that? So
okay, so he's saying that even what you do by pumping in, you know, dollars shouldn't be done. I'm imagining what situation we'll find ourselves if you didn't do that. Now that you are doing so, see where we are. And touch wood, Zimbabwe is just a bad example. But see how bad their currency became, almost worthless.
Okay, thank you, Samson. I think that I want to throw this discussion in macroeconomics perspective. Okay. The truth of the matter is that we've had a remarkable turnaround in the fundamentals of this economy since last year. Our external positions have improved a lot on the back of a positive trade surplus. Last year, we had a positive trade surplus of 2.6%. That means that our exports exceeded our imports. Okay. This year, as of June, we have the trade surplus of 2.1%, and we are projecting to end the year very well. So the point I'm trying to make here is that our external positions is improving. Our current account deficit, current account balance, which has perennially been on a higher deficit, is improving. From 2015 was 7.8 percent. It's come down 2016 to 6.6. Now, last year we ended at 4.2%, and now in June we are projecting a current account surplus of 0.6. So this is on the back of improving oil production, quite stable cocoa output and prices, and gold. So the point I'm trying to do is that even though I agree that as a country we have to look at other export avenues to continue to export, the bottom line is that where we are now with the three commodities that we have a surplus. So I don't think the discussion is just about the fact that we are not exporting too much, that much, or we are importing too much. The fact is that we have a trade surplus. I also want to now throw this in the perspective that inflation is improving. As we are in a single digit now, it was 9.6% in July. The last reading, it went up a little bit. But the bottom line is that the macroeconomic fundamentals are improving. Inflation is trending downwards. Fiscal deficit is also improving. And I'm happy to announce, I don't think many people have heard it yet, but yesterday, Fitch has upgraded us from B- to B+. So if you put all this together, then you see that this is an economy that people are recognizing that its fundamentals is improving.
Okay.
There's a chart I want to show.
Just hold on 1 minute. Yeah. Let's hear Dr. Bawumia just yesterday, what his perspective also is.
Yeah.
Let's hear Dr. Bawumia. Okay, I understand we have a little challenge with what Dr. Bawumia had to say. He was actually saying that what is happening, is the strongest, the best management we have had of the cedi in a long time. How is that correct?
If you look at the numbers, he's largely right. If you look at the depreciation of the cedi, and I'm going to state some numbers. In 2010, the cedi depreciated by 3.9%.
Okay.
In 2011, it depreciated by 4.97%. In 2012, it depreciated by 17.52%. 2013, 14.55%. 2014, 31.25%. 2015, 15.7%. 2016, 9.7%. 2017, 4.88%. Now, we haven't ended the year yet, but the latest figure I picked for year-to-date depreciation was 7.09%. So if you look at the past, say, from 2017 to up to 2012, 2017 was the best year. So I think to a large extent, what he's saying is that the currency's performance is improving over time. There's no doubt about that. Even though we've had some good years, we've got some between 2003 and 2007. The most depreciation we had was 4.9%. So those were very stable periods of depreciation of the currency, even though 2010 was also very good, 3.1%. So he's right to say that the best performance of the currency we've seen since 2010 was actually in 2017. And if we recover, we're still going to end the year quite well. So I think that the issue is that Ghanaians are now getting used to accepting that we need stable macroeconomic parameters to move this country forward. So they are right to get concerned when currency is moving. But we have to throw this in perspective that we have been faced with global economic spillovers, which has affected a lot of countries. I wanted to show some charts on what has happened to other countries. For example, if you take the Turkish lira, for example, year to date has depreciated by 41%. So that's a country, a currency that is really suffering. But if you put us in context, I don't think it's too bad, given what has been happening globally. Okay.
Clara, what's your appreciation? And when you hear Dr. Bawumia, tell us that, let's take a look at since 2017, or is it 2012? Since 2012, this is the best ever way that the cedi has been managed. You look at 2012, it was 17.5%. 2013, 14.6. 2014, 31.3. 2015, 15.6. 2016, 9.6. 2017, 4.9. And then 2018, 7% so far. So the claim is that this is the fact that this year's depreciation of the cedi against the dollar is the second lowest depreciation since 2012. The lowest and the second lowest since 2012 were both achieved under the Nana Akufo-Addo administration in 2017 and 2018. How do you process that?
No, for me, actually, I had planned not to say anything on the cedi depreciation because everything that is going on, I've heard before. The only difference is the person saying it. So it's who was saying it yesterday and who is saying it today that are different. But to a very large extent, everything that has been said so far has been said before. So as a Ghanaian, my question is, so should we, it doesn't mean it's okay, we don't have a problem. The cedi is not depreciating, so we should relax. And if we have a problem, my question has always been, the problems, we've always listed them. The issue of structural issues have come. External pressures, it's been said before. So it's not as if we don't know what the problem is. If we admit there is a problem, it's not as if we don't know what the problem is. It's also not as if we don't know what the solutions are. The issue of industrialization has come up. Our over-reliance on imports, we've talked about it. The fact that we need to export, we've talked about it. And we are still talking about it. So for me, it's a little bit, I'm used to hearing everything that is going on being said now. The only difference is the persons who say it. So what it shows is that, okay, so if we know what the problems are and we know what the solutions are, so what have we been doing? One thing is clear. We are not committed to the solutions. It means we know what to do, but we are probably not very committed to what we do, or we don't want to suffer the discipline required to do what we need to do. We've always, the China example, we've cited it before. What I take away from the China example is that is what China, they had a plan. And in their plan, they decided that this works for us. And so they adopted it. So what is our plan? We just can't cite China and then relax. Is our plan the same as, is that our plan as well? If it is our plan as well, how are we implementing our plan? So for me, really, like I said, I had planned not to say anything at all about this because everything that has been said before. The only difference is the persons saying it, okay. Most of them.
Okay. When you hear the general expressions from Ghanaians, market women, and, you know, I suppose that Dr. Bawumia had admitted before that these are the people you can use as the best measure of what exactly is happening to the economy. I've been listening to some of them in the course of this week, and they are weeping. They're just gnashing their teeth.
That's why I asked whether we are saying there's no problem. If we are saying this is the best we can do, it means there's no problem. We are saying we don't have a problem. If that's what we don't have a problem, well, we are all in this country, right? We can see whether we have a problem or not.
Okay. Yes, back to you, Edith. How should we approach the managers of the economy, their explanations as to why we now have almost $1 to 5 cedis? And it's interesting. If you check today, it looks like we have a double track currency market in Ghana as well. If you check the exchange rate, that's what I'm talking about. It looks like we have a double track exchange rate. Bank of Ghana interbank exchange rate, as at the yesterday, was supposed to be 4.7583. Then you have GHL, that's bank mortgages, as at today, 4.9750. So the question is there an official exchange rate, and is there the real exchange rate? What's going on? Because this gets people confused.
This is a tough one. We all know that although Bank of Ghana has its rate, we also have the black market. So people can walk in there, demand and supply will determine how the rate should go. I think that the issue should be tackled from different angles. The Bank of Ghana doing what it has to do, managers of the economy managing, doing their best. We as a people, we need to create that sense of ownership of the economy. We have to educate ourselves. And I think when I talk about education, the national NCCE comes in here. If you don't have that sense of patriotism, we will continue consuming imported goods. If the environment doesn't support industrialization, we will still bring in imported goods. So as a people, I know Nigeria doesn't import rice. If it does, then maybe at a very low level. They eat their own rice. They produce their rice and they consume their rice. Why can't we do that here? It's taken us too long. And I think that in the past, maybe the past 5 years or so, or 10 years, people have ventured into that area. But why aren't we seeing, why is the rate so slow?
Okay.
If you talk about agriculture, what are we doing? So as a people, we have to understand that if we don't want to be uncomfortable, and we don't want to be in this situation, then we have to look towards that angle. And as a government, if we know that it's uncomfortable for us, then we have to be hard on ourselves. But being hard on ourselves and getting the indicators right and not tackling the other aspects of industrialization, that will take us nowhere. We will still come to this every year. We'll sit around this table and discuss this issue. So I think that it has to be tackled from different angles. That is my point of view.
I see. Interesting. So, see, some may say we should reject what the politicians, the explanation of this situation is. But the politicians, unfortunately, or is it, are the ones who are managing the economy. So, like it or not, they are people in charge.
Yes.
And the opposition has been there before.
Right.
We're being told that Dr. Bawumia gives certain examples. He takes us to other countries like you suggest, and he speaks of external factors. But at the time when he was doing this analysis, he seemed to have comfortably, conveniently forgotten about the external factors.
Yes.
What are these external factors that you seem to suggest we can't do anything about, so we should just fold our arms and watch?
Okay, so I don't necessarily think it's much of the external factors. But if you permit me to go back a little bit, I must say that the inflation rates look good. So for instance, in July it was 9.6. 9.6 is a single digit. It's good. So I'm not saying, oh, everything is over the roof. But the bottom line is that when we make these comparisons, okay, you tell us that, oh, the lira is depreciating way more. It's like a student is failing and says, oh, my predecessor failed worse than I am doing. You know, it doesn't quite make sense, because when the market women and the importers, want to undertake the transactions, they don't go back and say, what was the exchange rate in 1973, in 2005? Do you understand? I mean, in economics, we can think of this as sunk cost. It's already gone. Okay, going forward, what is going to happen? You promise to, change this and this. I mean, if the fundamentals are weak, you'll be exposed. Of course, this means, I don't mean to sound political, but the point I'm trying to make is that you're supposed to solve a problem. You're not able to solve the problem. Then you come back and tell me the dude behind me couldn't solve it. What I'm doing is, but how does that even, it doesn't make sense, because the exchange rate is what, 4.75? How can you convince me that you're managing it better than somebody who, had maybe 4.2? Or,
you don't pay attention to the statistics that he gives?
I pay attention. I have them. I pay attention. But the point I'm making is that you're supposed to be solving a problem. The problem is not being solved. They come and tell me that it would have been worse, and I should applaud for you. I mean, come on. Nobody does that.
I see. Yes. From the perspective of the Bank of Ghana, you seem to sound that, look, we are okay. Just like Bawumia is indicating to us, we are okay. But people are just uncomfortable. Not that they are just uncomfortable. It's simply because they are feeling it.
Okay, and I empathize.
Because you need 5 cedis to get $1.
Yeah. I live in this economy, so if the cedi is depreciating, everyone feels it. If you have commitments that you have to meet in dollars, so I feel it. But the issue is, I don't think anyone has said that we are going to have a fixed exchange rate. That's not the issue.
Okay.
The macroeconomic framework that we have set to ourselves as a country, or that the Bank of Ghana and economic managers are pursuing, is an inflation targeting environment within a freely floating exchange rate regime. So our exchange rates can move up and down. But what we as economic managers, Bank of Ghana manages the monetary policy aspect of it, is that we are committed to making sure that the inflation is stable and other prices that may be derived from that are also stable. So I agree that the 7% depreciation that we have now.
What's the manifestation of this commitment that you are talking about, making sure that there's stability and all of that?
I've just told you that the inflation rate is in single digits. We brought it down from where it was. Now it's at 9.9%. It's within our target band.
Okay.
We are not happy about the recent increases in depreciation. We are doing all we can to make sure that it stabilizes, or maybe some recovery takes place. But we are saying that majority of what has happened, what are the sources of these movements in the currency, are mainly driven by global economic factors. One, global trade tensions between the US that has created some amount of risk off, that people don't move away from risky assets like ours. The strengthening of the US dollar based upon Fed policy, we said that the prospect of more interest rate increases this year, which is making investors move towards US assets. But there are certain things we are doing right. We are working on making sure inflation is within the band that we want it to be. We are running a trade surplus. Exports are improving. We should continue with that. Growth is strong. From a weaker growth is re-emerging strong. We should continue. So those are the things that when we continue to do, then the stability will reign in, and it will lead to a more stable exchange rate. Of course, we are also improving our credit rating so that investors see us with less risk premium.
All right. Let's now listen to this quickly. I want us to listen to two persons who shared certain views on the Cedi when Joy organized the Cedi discussion at the University of Ghana. So we'll listen to the former Deputy Finance Minister, much long before, Fifi Kwete, then Ken Thompson, and then we'll hear Bawumia also what he had to say quickly. Then we'll wrap up on this discussion.
According to the BOG data, Bank of Ghana data, the Cedi exchange rate increased from 1.1 to 4.2 to the dollar between 2008 and 2016. That we, as a government, under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's leadership and the management at the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana, it is clear that we have managed the exchange rate much better than our predecessors, and also much better than many other countries this year. In previous years, and I want to put our management of the exchange rate in context. In recent years, the Cedi has depreciated against the dollar as follows. In 2012, the Cedi depreciated against the dollar by 17.5%. 2013, 14.6%. 2014, 31.3%. 2015, 15.6%. And 2016, 9.6%. In 2017, we had 4.9%, and in 2018, thus far, we have 7%.
You can't live in a country where you import everything and expect to have a stable currency. It doesn't happen. Over 75% of the containers that come into this country go back empty. Over 75% of the containers that come into this country laden with goods go back empty. If you want a stable currency, fill those containers. Don't tell me about pumping dollars. I've heard this too many times. And we've got to accept that for an economy that is not productive, there will be some. We should allow the Cedi to reach its true value. Of course, I've said that manage it before, and rather than use the little money you have to support it, probably manage a decline and use the balance that you have to support your productive sector. So over time, you become competitive.
In spite of the fact that you are getting all the so-called strong fundamentals, the Cedi is having pressures. The Cedi suddenly is no more lock and the key at the police headquarters with the padlock. They actually have started galloping. So which tells you that really it's not simply an issue of what the fundamentals are. There are a number of things that still can affect currencies, and it's important for us to take note of them. We need, as politicians, and when it comes to this issue, it's important for politicians to be, let's call it, humble and honest enough to appreciate what factors are under our control and what factors are not under our control. Now, if you take credit during a period where external conditions are favoring you, and make all the boasts about how absolutely ingenious you are and what savvy miracle workers you are, and then the time comes where external conditions are hitting you and you want to run away from them, then you're actually being hypocritical. Imports is what it is we do very quickly. When it comes to export, the challenges relating to it are things our people naturally shy away from.
All right, so you heard the voices of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the Vice President, and who is the head of the Economic Management team. Also, Dalex Finance's CEO, Ken Thompson, Dr. Ken Thompson, and also Fifi Kwete, former minister, sharing their various views on this matter. Now, just maybe a minute for Clara, because you don't want to say much about it. What should we make of the sort of competition that even some of the experts seek to make out of this, you know, currency depreciation, inflation debates, where you know, one tells us that this group has done it better than the other group? What should we make of all of that kind of argument?
I think we should just be truthful. We just need to be truthful. We need to be truthful whether we are in control of how, at the rate of depreciation of the cedi, or we are not. It is either we are in control or it is external factors. But to say one thing today, maybe depending on where you are today, it is about, it's not within our control, it is external factors, A, B, C, D, and then you keep turning it around. So I think for the experts, we need to get at, to a point where we are truthful what actually causes the depreciation and what we can do about it. So that when we are not doing what we can do, then we can say that we can hold somebody accountable. But to come and throw numbers about, throw jargons about, say all kinds of things, and then at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is that the people just know what their suffering is, but they do not understand what you've told them. And then it makes it difficult for them to hold somebody accountable. So they just become spectators who have to suffer a certain consequence. With respect to what I know Ghanaians to be, Ghanaians are very industrious. And Ghanaians are patriotic. If you give them the right environment, you will see how they will perform. If Ghanaians, because I heard one of the speeches, the issue is that containers come and containers go back empty. If your conditions are not right for exports, what do you expect them to do? So we cannot throw the ball back at the Ghanaian businesses as if they are the ones who are not doing something right. Business people everywhere in the world, if you make your conditions great, they will do business in that direction. So if we want to encourage exports, it is up to us to create the policies and the environments that creates, at least that allows people to export and to make money for exportation.
So one district, one factory should be a major and serious project, right?
Yes, and we will, like I said, we should move from the slogans and this talking to action. I've said, look, how old are we now? We are over 20 years in democracy. We are big, I mean, we are big boys and girls when it comes to democratic governance, but we still go about doing things as if we are at a teething stage. I think, so yes, we should go past the other things.
So in a minute, Edith, how can you explain what Opata refers to? We have trade surplus, is that what he calls it? And yet the cedi is suffering. How do we explain that?
As I mentioned earlier, we have problems. And what could assist or could help us is the fundamental, getting it right. If we are self-sustaining, we're able to produce and we don't have to buy dollars to import, I'm sure that when the external shocks come in, we will be able to withstand it. No matter how well we manage our economy, we know that to a large extent, we trade with other countries. Even pricing. Most companies price in dollars. We depend on dollars. So if that is the case, then we have to make that effort to ensure that internally, as a country, we are able to save our reserves or foreign currencies for productive things. One other thing is looking at the video, the excerpt. I get a bit worried when politicians try to spin things in a positive light, polishing stuff, and also creating panic. You see, when it comes to the capital market or economic issues like this, speculation really plays a role. One of us, I think it was you, said that you're not interested in what happened in the previous years in terms of percentages. It really matters. You cannot take it out. If that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the cedi depreciated by 30%, and it is 7% this year, do we really have to create that panic situation? For businesses, it's not interesting. I publish newspapers, and I have to import newsprint. So definitely prices will go up. And sometimes you're not able to match up. You cannot increase your advert rates. But then, is it as bad as it used to be?
Okay.
Are we, or are the fund or the economic managers managing the situation well? If, I'm sure we hadn't, or government haven't managed to some extent, I'm sure the city will really dip.
Okay.
You see, so as much as a government or Bank of Ghana or whoever the managers are, they're putting in their best to stabilize the economy.
Okay.
I think we shouldn't create too much panic.
Right. Yes, so Suleiman, what will be your final minutes? What will you say?
So, first of all, Madam, I didn't mean, you know, it's not important in that sense. Like, if you are trying to act in the future, you don't go back and say, oh, exchange rate was 4.8 last year, so I won't act today. No, I mean, really.
Sometimes you need that to make decisions.
You need, it's good, I mean, well, it's there. And in any case, these percentage changes we're talking about.
My question to you is, what will be your final comment?
Yes. Okay, so, I mean, I'm just trying to, okay.
Right.
So the bottom line is that we have a problem that people claim to be solving, but it's not being solved, because if it's being solved, then we shouldn't be having higher, what do you call it, exchange rate. We shouldn't. So for me, what I think what we can do, because I mean, I just don't want to come here and talk about problems without proffering solutions, is that one, like we did to floor price, but we need to think about, rethink this whole forex intervention thing. In fact, Bank of Ghana needs to be very transparent with us. They need to tell us how much they're pumping every month to get the numbers we're getting. So that if it is too much, then maybe we have to start withdrawing and let the value of the city actually take its natural course. If it gets too expensive for people to import things, maybe we'll look inside and start buying things made in Ghana products. And remember, that's how we can ultimately end up filling the containers that you know, the CEO was talking about.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. And just that small bit, I wanted you to explain, because some people are interested. When you say we have had so much of a surplus that we should be proud about, and yet this is the situation of the interest rate, what do you say?
What I would like to say is that the point I was trying to make was that our external position is improving, no doubt, on the back of oil and gas sector. Okay, and coming back to the debate that was had at Legon, that 70% of the containers go empty. We have to realize that not all the international export sector activities happens at Tema. For example, at the Jubilee exports, they don't come back to Tema before they are exported. So the point is that if you put our total exports, I wanted to show that slide.
Yeah, it's being shown. Yeah.
So maybe you should go to the slide where we have exports, the first slide.
You go ahead. Go ahead. They'll bring it back.
So that slide shows clearly that we are exporting more than we are importing for last year and this year. But I do agree that we should look for more export sources to diversify the economy, because you don't want to be only commodity driven. I do agree that to the extent that we can build industry so that we can have a comparative advantage at the resources that we have to not import some of the things we're importing, we should do so. But the bottom line is that external situation is improving. We are able to build up more gross reserves. Our reserves adequacy is improving. So that story has to be told. It also has to be told that our fiscal management is improving. There was a time when we were running double digit, what we call the twin deficits, our fiscal deficit, and we're also running current account deficit, and even a trade deficit. Now it's improving. We have to tell that story. No one is saying that the CD will not move. If it's moving and it's affecting customers, there's a lot that is being done to address that. We must continue, we must stay on track with fiscal consolidation. And I'm happy that the Ministry of Finance is committed to staying to its 4.5% deficit target. And I expect that to happen. We must continue with our improving the oil and gas sector while we look for some structural changes to increase our export base. We must continue to exude confidence in the economy. That is why it's not really important to talk down on the CD, because sometimes expectations play into it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So this is where we take a break. I've got your messages coming in on the matter of the Cedi depreciation. Let me read this, and then when we return from the break, I'll share others. Then we get into looking at the matters of the tussle between Men's Gold the Securities and Exchange Commission, the back and forth that's been going on. This one from Stephen Amwa. He says that the only failing approach that has been adopted by all governments over the years is the short-term technique. All over the world, this approach has never worked. Solving currency issues require a long-term approach to attain the requisite sustainable solution. Even wood products and fruit juice that do not require complex value chain to produce are imported. Analyze all materials, including what you guys are all wearing today. They are imported. However, we have all the raw materials and the needed skilled labor force. Okay, I'm getting protests, Stephen.
My dress is not important. Everything about it is Ghanaian.
Right.
100% local.
Right. We have to be sure where the final material is generated in Ghana. Of course, yours to the smoke to you know these days. Yeah, you know these days. Okay, so he says when we do that analysis, you find that this is the situation. However, we have all the raw materials and the needed skilled labor force here in Ghana. This is all about the Cinderella syndrome that I talk about every day. We should look at the performance of other external parameters too. Industrialization is simply the long-term solution. We should rather do stakeholder analysis devoid of politics in attaining our industrialization goals. Okay, so that's a long one from Stephen Amwa. We call him Sticker. He's the man in charge of the small, what's the full name again?
Maslock.
Maslock for short. We'll be right back after this break. We'll deal with Men's Gold.